All right, today is January 16th, 2025, and we are live. I want to welcome everybody to the very first episode of Off the Record with Brian Hart. I am Brian Hart. This show, the concept behind it is to bring lively, candid conversations around some of the biggest topics that are trending on LinkedIn, the big things that business leaders, working professionals are focused on, and the stories that they're following and that they care about from a truly unredacted point of view. Each episode is going to feature a rotating panel of business leaders, academics, authors, people who can bring unique perspectives to the conversations that we're going to have on this show. And I am very excited about the two panelists that I have on today's show. We have Tonya McKenzie. Tonya McKenzie is the founder of Sand and Shores. It is a PR consultancy and also a leadership consultancy firm. And she is a Los Angeles commissioner on alcohol and other drugs. Tonya, thanks so much for coming on. And we're certainly have a lot to talk about, especially in your region and some of the storylines that are going on there. Chris Markowski is the Watchdog on Wall Street, one of the nation's longest running financial radio programs. Chris this year is celebrating the 25th anniversary of the show. And Chris, I know we're gonna wrap up the show really deep diving into that and the evolution of media that you've seen play out over the past 25 years. And Chris is also a founding partner of Markowski Investments, a financial planning, retirement planning firm headquartered in Tampa, serving clients nationwide. Thank you both so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Thrilled to be here with you, Brian.
So let's dive right into the first topic, and this is a serious topic that we've seen play out. Chris and I are on the East Coast. We've seen a lot of it play out on TV and just from conversations from people we know out in the Southern California region. Tonya, you're a whole lot closer to what's going on with this awful fire devastation that has. And I mean, we're not just talking about wiping out homes, we're talking about wiping out communities. The latest numbers I saw is we've had 25 confirmed fatalities and 12,000 structures demolished. And this thing's still going on. Tonya, I want to start with you. For everybody listening, I'm sure we've got people listening from different parts of the country. What are you seeing? What is the situation right now? How have you seen this unfold?
Well, again, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be able to be here. My kids went back to school on Monday, so that's when things really started to clear up. It's been devastating and heartbreaking to see this disaster take place, but it's also been very heartwarming to see the community come out and support the recovery. I think one thing that should be very clear is California goes through all kinds of disasters, right? So this fire, as bad as it is, you're used to having earthquakes. So we had an earthquake that rocked the Bay Area, right? It literally tore our bridge down, which is how we get from one side of the bay to the other. I went to Cal State Northridge when the earthquake rocked the entire Southern California, and there were people in the dorms. There were cars and whatnot under the parking lots and parking structures. So devastation is not new to Southern California. I think what's new is the way that it was covered. I don't believe that. First of all, there's two communities that were completely devastated. So the Palisades, Altadena, right? I'm a media personality. So one of the things that immediately strikes my attention is the coverage around the Palisades has been much greater than the coverage of Altadena. Altadena is one of the first Black middle-class communities in California. Like, it is largely populated with people of color, which got less coverage than the Palisades. So that has been a little bit of an issue. That has not really gotten the coverage that it needed. But again, the best part of this is that the community has come out to support both in masses. That is where we are right now. We're in a recovery stage and everyone is jumping in and doing their part. And I'm guessing we're going to get into this at some point, but it is also very disturbing, the criticism that has come out about these fires, right? A lot of the criticism that has come out is from people that are not in LA or not in the affected, impacted areas. That is nuts to me. That is absolutely bizarre because we have disasters in this country all the time. You don't necessarily see people looking for blame while the disaster is still taking place. We haven't even gotten to what actually happened before we're starting to place blame on whose fault it is. So it's unique in how the media is covering it and how people that are outside of the LA area is talking about it. So that's a little strange. And it's also a little upsetting for people that live here because we're the most impacted when people are divided. Like we're in a moment right now where we need more unity and more transparency and more truth, and we can definitely get into truth and transparency in media and how that landscape is changing. It's not factual. It's very opinion based. And we're in a moment in time where that shouldn't be the case. So we're combating disinformation while we're still trying to get out good information. But that is the other thing about media and social media. There's so many independent outlets now that are giving out good, verified information that allows for people, because we've talked about podcasts and things of that nature, people finding their home where they can get good, solid, fact-checked information. So people are really leaning into other places that they have learned gives them good information. So it's just been an interesting dynamic to watch. But I do want to be clear. Our country is full of people that don't know how government works. That's first of all. We're in LA County. LA City is in LA County. Karen Bass is the mayor of LA City. And people not understanding how the civic structure works thinks that she's responsible for all of LA County. I'm an LA County commissioner. So it's just interesting to watch how people are processing information, how people are dumping bad information into the system, especially at a time where we need more clarity, transparency, and honesty. And that's not what's happening. But the truth of the matter is, when you look around now, people are coming together to really support the efforts. They don't care. I heard Whoopi Goldberg say it perfectly. She was like, your politics does not care about when your house burns down. When your house burns down, no one cares about who you voted for. These fires don't care who you voted for. They're showing up. And then we get the conspiracy theorists. Those are coming out too, which is just entertaining to say the least. And there's been arrests. So it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on out here.
And I spend a lot of time on X, so I see the conspiracy theories on a regular basis. Chris, now you're based in Tampa, so a community that's no stranger to natural disasters. And I mean, just several months ago, Tampa got rocked pretty good during hurricane season. A lot of destruction that went through Tampa and up into other communities as well. Chris, as you look at this situation play out, what stands out to you?
You mentioned Tampa. Well, Tampa, we got hit twice. I mean, I closed on my house here the day after the first hurricane, and then the next week there was another one. And then my wife wanted to kill me for moving. But neither here nor there. Florida, and it's Hurricane Alley. You're going to get hit from time to time, but certain areas are more prone than others. Some of the areas that got wrecked, which further south, down where my mom lives, down in Minnesota Key, looks very not similar, but a war zone type, like California, absolutely destroyed. All the boats in the trees, houses flooded out, cars catching on fire. It depends on where you are. But the reality of the situation is that, you take a risk when you get out of bed in the morning. And there's certain areas in the country where there's going to be a little bit greater risk where you're going to live, and it goes along with it. California, they're going to discuss. And again, there's nothing wrong going back and taking a look at what could have been done to help mitigate this. But if there's a fire and the wind's blowing 100 miles an hour, what are you going to do? My wife's family lives in Greece, and it's a similar dry type of climate there, and they have fires all the time. maybe mitigate, maybe get rid of some of the eucalyptus trees, some of the scrub underneath. But there was going to be a fire anyway. Actually, did a lot of homework on it over the past week and went back to like the 1500s. That LA Bay now, what's it called? San Pedro? I forget what they call it, of Los Angeles. It used to, the first person there called it the Bay of Smokes because of all the fires that were there. And if you go prior to 1800, 4.5 million acres of California would burn every single year prior to all of this. I mean, that's nature. There was a story, it was fascinating. They were talking about how some botanist got upset because they wanted to put up metal poles rather than take down the 100-year-old power poles. But they stopped them from doing it because of this shrub that is protected. It's some sort of, I guess, endangered shrub. Why it's endangered is the only way it germinates is if there's a fire. So the seeds won't actually grow. They go into the ground. They won't grow unless there's a fire. Very similar to the sequoia tree. You won't see a sequoia tree. They won't grow. None of them will germinate unless there's a fire. So that is the nature of California. And again, the more people that move into areas that are prone to fires, there's obviously going to be more damage. That's just the reality of the terrain.
Well, and speaking of people moving into areas where there's a lot of fires, I mean, one business story that I've certainly been following over the past few years, and I think we're seeing it play out now, is a lot of home insurance companies are, they are getting out of areas where there has been a lot of climate disasters or other types of disasters in the Midwest where Hurricane Alley is. Home insurance is very expensive. Well, just like it's becoming in the Gulf Coast and just like you're seeing it in California.
Rightfully so. I mean, it's insurance, again, Chris Rock did a stand-up bit, something that you buy that you hope you never have to use. But the reality is you have to price risk into the equation. And, from when I was reading and doing some homework on, some of these insurance companies pulled out because we need this type of mitigation to go in, or it's not going to be worth it because we're going to have to raise our premiums to cover that. In the same way that if you are a driver who had DWIs and runs red lights, your insurance is going to be more because you're a higher risk. That's a part of living here and or living there, or living here in Florida, whatever it may be. My choice was, I didn't want to go live on the water on Davis Island in Tampa because I didn't want to deal with any of that. So I'm going to live, a 3-minute walk from the water. And, my insurance is much lower because I'm 16 feet above sea level. I got hurricane force windows to protect me from that. But if you've got a home that's, in a danger zone and you haven't mitigated these things, of course, the insurance companies are going to have to price that in. That's just how insurance works. And there was a proposition in California, it was back in 1988. It's called Proposition 103. And basically, it made it very hard for insurance companies to operate because it requires insurance companies to get government permission from an elected, again, it's an elected commissioner before raising rates. Now, what elected commissioner is going to say, okay, raise my insurance rates? So it makes it difficult to price insurance properly. And the problem that I see as well is that we put this off on the taxpayer. And I'm equal opportunity here, whether it be Florida, whether it be California, whatever it may be. The government shouldn't be subsidizing any sort of insurance, flood insurance, hurricane insurance, or anything like that, because quite frankly, it misprices a home. It's like welfare for rich people. So they can have a house on the water or, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And then your fellow taxpayer has to subsidize your insurance, which to me is just nuts. That's wrong. You want to live there, pay the price for living there. Just that simple.
That makes a lot of sense.
So another story, or Tonya, did you want to add to that? Or
no, I just said that absolutely makes a lot of sense. And looking at how, we're looking for FEMA's help and insurance companies to cover a lot of the homes. There's a $35 million home that burned down. And it's just unfair to say, and I want the government to subsidize
It's crazy.
Us rebuilding that home.
Especially in a high-risk area. And it's been going on down here in Hurricane Alley, along the Panhandle, homes that have been built over 4 or 5 times, paid for by the taxpayer. That's nuts. Okay, you want to live there? God bless. Okay, have at it. The story of the three little pigs. You want to build one out of bricks there, so the big bad wolf doesn't blow it down.
So I'm going to warn listeners, one name you're going to hear a lot, probably for every conversation that we have over the next hour, is going to be Elon Musk. Because it feels like that man has his hands on everything right now. And one positive thing, and you're going to hear me give him some criticism, you're going to hear me give him some praise. I want to start off giving him some praise with Starlink and the amazing service that Starlink has produced that we're seeing in Southern California right now, giving people whose electricity, internet access has been wiped out, giving them access so that they can communicate, they can get news updates, they can better protect themselves, their businesses, their families, because they're able to still have that internet access. So, and then, when we've seen other natural disasters, it seems like Elon Musk tends to keep stepping up with the Starlink initiative and giving people access. And this, in the US, we're mainly seeing it in either these disaster zones or in areas of the country where it's very difficult to get internet access anywhere. He is really changing the game with Starlink from my perspective. And then you're seeing it across the world, giving people who would have had limited or almost zero access to internet and information, giving them a chance, giving them an even playing field now, finally. That's how I see it. Tonya, I mean, are you hearing about folks in your community who have tapped into Starlink while this craziness is playing out?
And in all honesty, we're not hearing a lot about that right now. Not here, but people are still trying to figure out what they need and how they can access it. So I think it's just a little early to try to connect that, because they're not even in that mindset right now. It's literally people walking around to see if their loved ones that are missing is in the rubble. Like it's pretty bad right now. So we're not hearing much about Elon right now, but I'm sure he will find himself in the news in LA. The only thing we heard about him is showing up to talk to the fire chief, and it made absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
So not too much.
Yep.
Not too much about Starlink.
Chris, any thoughts there before we shift gears?
The product's excellent. It really is. I've used it before. In Europe, vacation Greek islands, the hotels, they actually have that set up for they use that for their internet service. And it's a shame we should have contracted that out rather than, what the Biden administration did with trying to connect all of these rural areas, and they got nobody connected, and they spent billions and billions of dollars of our money. This is where, it's important where your government puts things out to bid and let the best man win. That type of competition breeds excellence, and then we'd have more people connected around the country. It's pretty neat how it works. It's small. It's like a little small dish, and it can work everywhere. And I think United Airlines is now going to have it. That's going to be their service on all their flights.
Oh.
Let me, and if you don't mind me following up, I think Starlink came out in, what was it, like 2020, right?
There was I don't know what the exact year they started. It was super expensive at first. They just had it on boats, and they keep launching more and more. You'll see them sometimes when if you get not having a lot of lights, it's like in the sky, you'll see the satellites are in a straight line. It looks kind of odd, but yeah, they continue to launch more and more of those satellites. I don't know the exact date, but the price keeps coming down where it's almost as competitive as it is with your local internet provider. And you just put like a little dish on your roof.
Yeah. So let's shift gears. Let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg put out a video last week. I love the new look. He grew out his hair. He looks like he's living his best life. But he rolled out six specific policy changes, most of them having to do with Meta. And if you haven't heard of Meta before, we all know Facebook, Instagram, Threads is like their ex-competitor. But those are all under this umbrella company, Meta. And he launched initiatives across all of his Meta platforms. Let me just read off a quick summary of what he's got going on. one of the first things in this video that he put out that jumped out to me is he specifically talked about this most recent presidential election as a sign of changing, what were his exact words? A cultural tipping point, he called it, this past election. And he claims that that was one of the motivators for him implementing these policies. First, he's getting rid of fact checkers. And he's replacing it with a system much like what Elon Musk has done with X, where it's based on community notes. If somebody puts out something that you find false, directly false, those who have access to community notes can go in and dispute it. People can vote on those community notes. And then that post that has, apparent misinformation will have that community note attached to it. That's one. He pledges to streamline content policies, drop restrictions that are out of touch with mainstream discourse. And he specifically talked about gender and immigration as far as where he would drop outright restrictions that Meta had previously implemented. They'll adjust how they enforce their policies to reduce mistakes. Basically, they are going to stop any type of censorship, so he claims, on something that would be considered a minor infraction, and just focus on content that could be illegal or directly harmful to an individual. That was my read and takeaway from that policy. He's bringing back political content. Meta had been phasing it out and de-emphasizing it. They had their algorithms trying to filter out certain political discourse. He's dropping those filters from the algorithm. You're now going to probably see a lot more political content on the platform. He's moving this one's really interesting. He's moving his content moderation teams from California to Texas, saying that there would be less concern about bias from their teams doing that move. And then lastly, he promises to work with the Trump administration to push back on international governments that they find are censoring social media and so forth to make their platforms available, internationally without certain nations, hammering them with filters and whatnot. I've got my opinions. I want to open it up. Chris, Tonya, jump in.
Go ahead, Tonya.
Well, for me, the way that I read this is very much, I don't want to get in any trouble. I don't want the Trump administration having beef with me and fining us or filing any suits against us. So I'm going to comply. I'm going to be his friend because I'm protecting my wallet. I don't want no problems. That's how I read into it. That's how many public relations professionals read into his nice little speech with his new look. The community notes, many of us that believe in truth absolutely understand it is going to build more of a toxic culture, which is unfortunate because most people know Twitter is a toxic cesspool at this point. It definitely takes away the ability to display the truth. If I am someone that 10 people don't like, or the things that I say is against your beliefs, all it takes is your 10 people to come and write on my community notes that this is false, this is AI, this is whatever it is that you want to say about the claim that we're making. So there is no fact, there is no truth that you can expect from the community notes. Like we all know, Twitter's brand value has gone down a lot. There are many journalists and credible organizations that have left that platform. So to even come out and say, we're going to do what Twitter is doing is letting you know we're going to comply so that we don't get in any trouble. But saying community notes, it almost was like a dog whistle. Community note, we know what that means. This is not about telling the truth or feeling like it's a safe place to express your opinions, express your thoughts, or whatever the case, no matter what side you're on. Community notes is really like, what did my son call it yesterday? Rage baiting. Yeah, it's rage baiting.
I read it a little bit differently. And you know me, I love X. I spent a lot
I
of time on
know.
there. But I read it differently because in recent weeks, especially in recent weeks, the past few months, but especially recent weeks, the community note system has been performing better, in my opinion. And I mean, that scenario that you described where, oh, we just don't like this person or what they have to say, so we're going to hammer on them. I haven't seen that play out. And, I'm a PR professional. We're PR professionals. I mean, the facts matter to us. We know how to read between the lines with media and so forth. I'm not, that scenario that you described, was there a little bit of it when they first rolled out that system, got rid of these fact checkers? Yeah, there probably was. I'm not seeing it in recent weeks. I think the system has gotten better and better as it's matured. So my prediction with Meta is you're going to see a little bit of the same. You're going to see a rocky period in the beginning where people are going in to retaliate and spread fiction and whatnot. But Meta's going to learn from that. They're going to pick up on that data. They're going to tinker with it and improve it. So that doomsday scenario you described, I'm not seeing it. Am I all on board with Meta taking this pivot? I don't know. Is there a profit motive behind it? Of course there is. But we'll see how it plays out. Chris, was there something you wanted to add there?
I'm a big fan of Twitter and what the change since he has taken it over, and I use it on a regular basis. I think it's great. It's interesting that Zuckerberg just talked about it. Again, I was someone that was deplatformed and put in Facebook jail during COVID for being accurate and being silenced by their fact checkers. So much for the fact checkers who don't deal with facts. And Zuckerberg, just did an interview basically explaining that the Biden administration's people called up and threatened them to take people off and shut down certain, forms of discourse that they didn't like, which to me is one of the most un-American things going. Quite frankly, I want to have more speech out there, not less. And again, the group that I distrust the most out there is the United States government. Whether they be lying about, COVID, vaccines, lying us into another war, whatever it may be, I'm going to trust them. And the government putting pressure on these platforms to curtail speech. That's what made this country great. You can go back to the original pamphleteers when this country was founded, and let people kind of figure it out for themselves. So no, I don't trust fact checkers by any stretch of the imagination, because again, they have their bents. I can pick apart the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal with whatever narrative they're pitching on any given day. I mean, you and I, Brian, have talked about it now. This so-called journalism that we have today, where it's anecdotal journalism. It's not journalism. It's just like, oh, I got an idea. Now I'm going to find 4 or 5 people to back my idea, and here we go. I have a story. That's not how it should be. I think the scientific method needs to be brought back into play when it comes to journalism. I think Facebook, understands that they're how well Twitter has been doing. I know they had that new little blue sky, or whatever the thing that started up, but they're doing it because people were gravitating away. It almost became Facebook. Almost was like social media for old people. My kids made fun because I was on it. They're trying to bring the youth back to some degree with that. As far as your relationship with Europe and what these tech companies are doing, the United States has, if you want to go back to 2008, the European economy and the United States economy were about equal in size. That's the entire European Union, the United States. Right now, we've blown them away. They don't build anything. They don't create anything. What they do is pick on American companies and fine them so they can get some sort of vig off us. What have they built and created over there anytime recently? Their economies are in the toilet. And all they keep doing is keep hammering American tech companies up. We'll collect another 5 billion. We'll collect another 20 billion because you don't do anything or don't build anything there. So yeah, I think that they're definitely wanting to work with the administration to push back against that, and maybe having some sort of reciprocal tariffs on European goods if they're going to decide to just start haphazardly finding American companies.
So let me really quick, let me lean into what both of you have said in regards to the community notes. First, I think it was the best thing Zuck could have done is to acknowledge that they've been making some mistakes, that they have error, that they were wrong in how they've censored people, because that happened on both sides, right? There are certain keywords that mean much of nothing that anyone can get deplatformed for. So it happened on both sides, and him acknowledging that that was done wrong was probably the best part of what he had to say. But when I say the toxic culture and the community notes are a problem, I don't think there should be any notes. If we're going to have free speech, let's make America read again. If you care about if someone is saying something is true, then learn how to process information and find out if it's true or not. But community notes and allowing for the public to decide when people see your post, if that's true, if that's factual, if you're a liar, if you're, whatever other word you want to use, a leftist, a rightist, it doesn't matter. If we're going to have free speech, then let it be free. Why do you have anybody? If you want to comment, but the community notes are basically placing a label on what you are saying. And it has built toxic culture on Twitter. And I do believe it'll do the same on another platform. If you are going to have free speech, let it be free. Why do you need somebody to label that? Now we're back in the same circular motion of, well, they said you're lying. No, you go find out if I'm lying and you come back and you comment. Why do you need community notes? Why is there two different ways of commenting on something? There is a way to build culture where people are comfortable saying what they need to say. And if you care if it's true or not, people need to learn how to process information and fact check and find out if that is the truth, if that is real, or if it's not. We have been dumbing down intelligence in this culture in America. Like, I don't need you to tell me that she's lying. I need to go find out myself. Like, people are not processing information anymore. So to have any kind of notes on it, I think is a problem. I just think it's a problem.
Because I've been in my radio show, the Watchdog on Wall Street show, I've been going after investment cons and frauds for like I said, for 25 years on air. If I see somebody promoting some sort of whatever be investment, and I know it's a con or a fraud, I got to call that out. I have to call it out.
Then call it out.
But people are going to get, so I would use that because it would call them out as saying, this is not accurate. This is not right. You're not telling the truth here. This is what it actually is. This is what it has to be. And I think using that, again, through the process they're doing it, they've gotten much, much better than the way it used to be. It kind of filters through, where you can kind of say, well, wait a second, you're not telling the whole story here, and you can add to it. This is accurate. And then you can say, well, okay, there's this as well. It's unfortunate. And I agree with you because, again, everybody's walking around, looking for, and it's, we're talking about the nature and how media has changed. The most hits that I get are on my stupid shorts. I call them stupid because I can't stand doing them every day because they're a minute long. They can't be any longer than that. People's process, they want something quick and easy and a hit. They want to move on to the next thing. With kids scrolling on the thing, it's unfortunate that, a lot of people don't like to dig deeper into things. And make books great again. That's my say.
Make America read again. But my question, I guess, in that process would still be, why wouldn't you just comment that is untrue, or either repost and say this is untrue so that it sticks there? It adds so many different layers. Okay, am I looking for someone to tell me this isn't true? Or am I going to read? Am I going to read the thread? Am I going to dig a little deeper than just certain headline? Because we've become a very headline-ish country. You never read the text, you just read the headline, and then you move on. Like, I just think if you're going to say free speech and we're going to do things better, then make it better. Don't continue to handicap people.
And one thing I want to add, I want to set some context here, because the community notes as Elon built it, the genesis of that was an idea he rolled out maybe in 2016, 2017, when Tesla was getting a lot of bad headlines, when they were first getting into self-driving cars and there were some accidents and everything else. He wanted to roll out this company called Pravda, where it would let the public rate journalists on how good of a journalist they are, or how a popularity contest basically for journalists, basically an opportunity for people who are a little bit more pessimistic about journalistic integrity to go out and just trash people, who's, don't cover the things they don't like them to. That's how I've read it. And I was writing for Inc. magazine back at the time. And I wrote one of my favorite articles I ever wrote, a blistering piece talking about how stupid of an idea I thought that was. And I still believe that was a stupid idea. Now, thank goodness Community Notes has evolved and Elon does have some smart people giving him advice, and he didn't go to that extent with his Community Notes system. And again, from my perspective, the Community Notes system has gotten better. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with Facebook. I think one other thing we have to acknowledge between X and Facebook is that X is an open network. So a Community Notes system on X isn't going to play out the same way it does on Facebook, which is a closed network where people are making mutual connections, where the people sending the misinformation that you think you don't want to see are your uncle or or that kid you had science class with back in 10th grade.
Well, again, I think the issue, Brian, also it's social media as well. I mean, when I remember when Twitter first came out, it was like 2007, 2008. I remember, was it Ashton Kutcher with Justin Timberlake trying to see how many followers they get at the time? And I said, this is not going to end well. I've always compared social media to the pink slime in Ghostbusters 2 that ran under New York City, because you just get near it. It's just negative energy. Don't go reading comments. Don't post comments. Don't get into arguments on social media. You want to go there for a bit of information, take it for what it is. That's a part of the problem. It's just that, these keyboard warriors out there getting into fights over here and saying things to one another that they wouldn't say to your face. Never, ever, ever. That's my lesson. Never, ever, ever comment, do all that stuff, read, move on. Have a nice day.
Chris and Brian, I've come to the point, I'm trying to get people to recognize also when all of this started, it was social media. It was to be social. It wasn't angry media. It wasn't fight everybody media. It wasn't cuss you out media. It was literally social media. You were supposed to connect with people. You wanted to see their content. You wanted to put out content for them. But again, now it's being used to rage bait. I will block you. If I don't like your content, I'm not going to fight with you. I'm not fighting. That's not what I come here for. There is plenty in the world to be done where we can battle it out. But your social media, your timeline is literally supposed to be things that you enjoy reading, that you're interested in, that you learn from. I'm just frustrated with our lack of thirst for knowledge and intelligence. Like we used to really, I would subscribe to Chris because I want to hear more about his business mind, what he's thinking, what he sees out there that's important. Oh, because I like Chris and he's open-minded. So I'm going to read what he says and see if I agree with it or not. I might not agree with it today. I might agree with it tomorrow, but I'm not about to blast you and be like, you're a liar. You make me sick. You're right. All right. Okay. Get off my timeline, sir. That is not what I come here for.
Tonya, we had an old rule in talk radio. Well, I learned this when I started doing daytime, when people calling in, never argue with idiots because they've got way too much experience of being an idiot, and the conversation never goes above that level ever. So you have to have if somebody can have a Socratic debate. You can have two people with two different opinions and discussing things. It's not personal. I mean, go back and read the classics. See how they did it in ancient Greece. It worked. We used to have those in schools. Again, I'm showing my age because, debate societies, how to debate. We don't do that anymore. There's a certain way you can go about getting somewhere. The libertarian group, reason they do the Soho forums in New York, they get two different people that they argue points. Oh, they go have a party afterward. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be about. You're supposed to, again, you're trying to get and learn some more to come to some sort of truth. If your object is this is whether it be, in business or whether it be in art, you're not trying to get over or kill somebody. You're trying to get to a certain point in time where you can come, where both can walk away with an understanding and walk away happy.
100%.
So can we talk about the monetization model as well? Because when we talk about these people who just want to create rage or want to put out things that might not be entirely truthful just because they know it's going to rile people up, X has now a pretty robust monetization model. And I know Meta's working on their own system. Again, I mean, it looks like they're emulating a lot of what X is doing. So we can't say it's losing brand value when Meta wants to be just like them now. Clearly, I think Elon and X are doing something right, or at least something that's they foresee being profitable going into the future. But X is monetizing people who say outrageous things, and they will post things knowing that it's going to piss people off, and then they're going to jump into their comments, and ads are going to pop in those comments, and people are getting paid for it. When we look at certain cable news personalities, some of them just come on to say dumb things, whether it's sports cable news or news cable news or whatever it is. There are people who get paid to piss people off,
Brian, you
and
remember
who are very good at it.
You remember the scene in Something About Mary at the beginning where they're all circling around? Remember back in middle school, fight. They're kids. I mean, these are people not high intelligence. You got to walk away from all of that stuff. They want that to happen, but that's always been the case. It's like I said, we were like when we were kids and everybody circling around when there was a fight in elementary school or middle school. It's stupid.
Yeah, but there are people that want that.
They love it. I know.
Unfortunately, and
People are making a living off of it now.
I've
seen
so
some of these
much
extras.
energy to just all freaking day. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. When it first started, Facebook, I used to go start mess with people sometimes if I was bored or I needed to bring something crazy out. Like, okay, I'm bored. I'm about to go rage bait somebody and say some wild stuff. But dude, we're too old for that.
I'm way too old for that.
We're too old for that. Like, I need a nap after a good cyber argument. No, we're not doing that. We're just not doing that. But yes, they are monetizing it. Unfortunately, though, it's not just happening online. It's on TV, on radio, in every aspect in our culture now. It's like, right. Ooh, if I can show that I'm aggressive and I can talk back, and people love that, and they find some way to monetize it. I'm going to go start a fight at the store and make sure somebody's recording it. Well, so that I can go get some clicks off of it.
ESPN, all of the popular shows in the morning are guys that are arguing with one another over football. That's fine. That's fine. Maybe you want to have a cocktail or something, but again, that's, people like watching that. Yeah, whatever floats your boat, I guess. To each his own.
I remember I think it was Stephen A. and JJ Redick when they were on ESPN together. They got into an argument. I forget what they were even arguing about. And JJ Redick said the most truthful, amazing thing ever. He looks at Stephen A. and says, "I don't believe that you believe what you're saying right now."
I remember that.
And it was perfect. And you can watch any cable news program today and find those people. They're just saying it to say it.
Literally.
Okay, quick story here to prove you're exactly right. Okay, I can't remember the year. I don't know. I was Fox News. I'm going on to do a program, and I'm there to talk about Social Security, and I'm there to debate. Remember the late Bob Beckel? Remember Bob? Okay, Bob Beckel. He was like the resident guy that would come on the programs that would argue the left point. So I'm sitting down with him, talking in the green room. We're supposed to talk about Social Security. He asked me, because he didn't know a damn thing about Social Security. He said, I don't even know what I'm going to be talking about. Then he's like, he wanted me to explain it to him, but he kept getting off track. He wanted to talk about Keith Richards' book that he was reading at that point in time. I said, this is going to be wonderful. This is why you have all these paid contributors at these networks. They're paid to have a certain position. That's what I tell people all the time. You're watching the mainstream media, the news out there. A lot of these people, they are paid to say something. That's their job. They come in, they need we need you to be on this program at such and such a time to argue in this direction and at such a time. And they can make a living doing that, whether they believe it or not. I couldn't do that, just me, but that's, to each his own again.
So let's pivot. We're going to get back to Mr. Musk. So he's going to have a big role. He is going to be an unelected bureaucrat whose job it is to rein in unelected bureaucrats. He is going to head up this Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and he seems pretty amped up to do it. And I mean, this first 100 days of this new administration, I expect that DOGE department, it's him and Vivek, I saw, is going to play some role in it. I didn't see who all else is going to be involved with this, but I mean, their job is going to be to go around and see where they can cut government jobs and cut down departments. There's talk about eliminating some departments altogether. So how do you see it just as an American? How do you see it from a business sense too, this initiative? And Mr. Musk being the one chosen to head it up?
Well, it's going to be Musk and Vivek working on this. You take a look at our budget deficit is completely out of control. The interest on our national debt, we're spending $1.3 trillion, which is way more than we spend on our military. You can go, Rand Paul puts out his pork book, but the problem is that When all's said and done, both parties are the same for the most part. It's few and far between. You got people that actually want to do any real cutting because, if it's in your district, and we're in charge now, I want to send money home because it keeps me going. And that's just how our political system works right now. And it's a disaster. So I'm kind of hoping we can get some sort of term limits with these people in Congress. The longer they stay there, the more powerful they become. And then, they can send more and more money back to their districts. How about doing what the founders wanted and going and serving your country, then going back and getting a real job like the rest of us? It's gotten completely out of control. You can go line by line by line, everything. The Pentagon can't pass an audit, yet they want more money every year. Every single, you take a look at all the various different military contractors, the type of power that they have, the revolving door between that and the Pentagon. All of these workers we don't need. All these workers are not even going into the office. They're getting DC pay grades, but they're living in Florida or Missouri or somewhere else. I mean, come on. It's gotten completely out of control. 25 years ago, I first started this show. It was Bill Clinton's last year. And guess what? Okay, you take a look at the size of the government then to the size of the government today. What have we gotten outside of, let's fight a war in Afghanistan to replace the Taliban with the Taliban? I mean, what have we gotten for all of this money that we've spent over this period of time? Nothing from the government. We don't even, government ain't even launch rockets anymore. Elon and Bezos do that work for them, for crying out loud. What do we spend money on? Where does it go? How many handouts and giveaways are we going to have? What is the extent? How much you planning on, taxing people? You live in states like California, states like New York. People are working over half their lives, to pay their taxes. We need to, cut away. But, as excited as I am about this, and I hope that they get some sort of success at cutting out government fraud, waste, all of this nonsense, ridiculous no bid cover into contracts, all that stuff. It's going to be tough because both parties are both guilty of nonsensical spending.
Tonya, what stands out to you about this story?
That I agree with Chris. Honestly, look, I feel like Elon bought his way into the White House to be able to make sure that he ain't got to pay much because, of course, he pays a lot of money and he does not want to pay what he's paying. He also, does not. This guy, I don't know, him and Vivek, it'll be interesting if they are really able to come in and cut the fat. I don't think anyone that actually pays taxes, especially California taxes, would be upset about cutting excess and wasteful spending and find some way to lower my taxes. Oh, yeah, I'm a fan. Is that what's actually going to happen? I'm skeptical. I'm sorry. I'm just not feeling like things have gotten better. I didn't feel like things got better when Trump was in the first time. I don't feel like they're going to be much better this time. I'm skeptical about government. And these two coming in, and now they're causing rift in the Republican Party with some of their thoughts on how American culture is the problem. We will see how much they can get along, because when it comes to government, on some level, you have to get along with people in order to get things done. Sure. You can't just come in throwing blows right and left. Like, give it a minute. Understand how the government works first. Find ways to get things done in a way that still allows for us to function well, but you're making things better for the American people. So it's just interesting how they come in slinging mud from the jump, and we're expecting them to be effective and impactful on our tax dollars. So it will be interesting. I would love it. We know good and well that there's a lot of excess spending going on, but it still feels like a selfish move. I don't think they're the best people. This dude, Elon's been sued so many times. It don't even make no sense. So how you get along with people matters. Like, how government works and how you relate to people to get things done matter. What we see on TV, the fighting and the back and forth, that's one thing. It's very sensational. Make sure everybody, all the radio, TV stations still get paid. But most of the time, they're in there doing work together. They're working together to find solutions and make things better.
The problem is, Tonya, they haven't done it for either side. They haven't done it for a very long time. They've done nothing.
Nothing.
All we get is more and more government spending, another continuing resolution. The number one job for the House of Representatives is to pass a spending bill. And they can't even do that every single year. We got to continue with these continuing resolutions. What work do they actually do outside of investigations? And you watch all these ridiculous hearings they have all the time. It's almost like Congress has become content creators for YouTube. They get their pictures taken, and that's what they're doing. This is so they can put out videos so they can try to raise money after the fact. That's the issue. Is
rage baiting. I said they go in these meetings. They go in these meetings ready to say something wild so that they can go raise money instead of let's see how we can lower these taxes in California. Let's see how we can lower these taxes in New York. Let's see what else we can do to make things better for the American people. Now, if God help us, Vivek and Elon, which I never really heard them actually agree on anything other than American culture is messed up. If they can do it together and find some way to cut some fat, all for it. But I personally feel like this is really about Elon trying to save some money. So
talking about Donald Trump and Elon Musk coming together. I mean, how much ego can one room fit? I mean, when is this honeymoon? I'm convinced the honeymoon's gonna end at some point, because we've seen it play out with Donald Trump and other big personalities. Chris Christie, he's memeing, he's posting memes about Chris Christie to this day. When Donald Trump has tried to collaborate with a big personality, oftentimes it doesn't end well. And Elon Musk is one of the biggest egos and personalities he could possibly partner with. I don't think it's going to end well.
Though. I like it's not inside of government. It's outside of government. I think that they're going to be, hell and high water away from Washington, D.C. Trying to, and I like the fact that they're, since my kid's a senior in college, they're actually trying to recruit college kids, just go through line by line, looking for things and trying to find things that, where you can cut out waste and fraud and looking for ideas to do that. I think that's a great idea. You almost kind of deputize the country and saying, if done properly, you can bring the country together. There's a lot of that stuff that they did during World War II with the various different metal drives and rubber drives. It was done because they needed it. It was done to kind of get the country together. It was one of the things that pissed me off about, Bush and starting all of his wars was, he told everybody, hey, go out and spend, go out and shop. Don't worry about anything. I'm like, what? You're sending people off to fight here, and then you're telling everybody to go out and shop and have a good time. I said, something's amiss here. If you could maybe deputize the country, it's a great way to try to bring people together and say, hey, listen, we want ideas of where we can start saving money and bringing this, preposterous $36 trillion national debt down.
So I want to spend the last few minutes, Chris, something I mentioned at the beginning of the show. You are now celebrating 25 years on the radio, and I know your show's evolved. Started off, I'll let you tell the story. Talk to us.
Yeah,
talk to us about the genesis.
You're getting old when you're dating yourself in decades. I learned that. I started celebrating. I'm like, holy, that was how many years ago? Well, anyway, no, it's changed a lot. I mean, the originally, radio was one of the biggest mediums going. I mean, it's just, again, at 20, especially as far as conversation, talk radio, a lot of, great experiences, broadcasting from, political conventions and inaugurations and all of that. But it started to slowly but surely, wean away and move towards, the podcast realm, the vlog realm, and all of this stuff. And, I went kicking and screaming. So, now I still do my radio show every single week, but I still do, multiple podcasts every single day with certain formats, just basically trying to find out ways where you can reach people. I love my college interns in the summer because they understand this a hell of a lot better than I do, and trying to get my message out to as many people as possible. Again, you got to also figuring out an algorithm, what they're going to pick up, what keywords, all of this stuff. Yeah, it was easier before. There's no doubt about it at all. But again, it has changed, and people more and more, even older people are getting used to it and listening to things on demand and going to it. I like the fact that, allowing people a voice. I think it's fantastic. We haven't, subscribed here into this country, starting to lock people up for things that we don't they say like they're doing in the UK right now. I say it all the time. I said, I'm in the free speech business. I may vehemently disagree with everything that you have to say, everything that you're about, but I most certainly will, die so you're able to say it, because, that to me is, that's what really is going to keep the country going.
Can I ask you a question, Chris?
Sure.
My great grandmother used to say, if you frown a lot, you're going to wind up keeping those lines right in your forehead, but you've earned every last one of them. I want to know what has been the toughest part of your career, and what has you frowned? Because you ain't smiled a lot since we've been on here. You are serious.
I haven't smiled?
No, not a lot. Not a lot.
Time.
You are serious. Like you came in here to do battle. And I'm like, this must be a regular for him.
It's just me showing passion. I'm pretty, ask Brian. Most of you listen to my show. I'm cracking jokes. I'm sub-referencing pop culture, doing all sorts of stuff all the time. I try to make it as fun as possible. I'm dealing with finance, try to make that fun, and taxes.
Because you got some beautiful you got some beautiful pictures behind you, but I'm like, he is so serious. He is so serious.
Brian, am I serious?
You make some of the
So
you are one of the ultimate dot connectors in how you can take one concept and connect it to a movie scene and move those pieces around. That is a true talent.
I think he's rage baiting me now with all these, like he wants to fight or something. Like, what is going on? No, I'm just kidding. No, what has been the toughest part of the change in media that you have seen? Like, what is something that you've gone through where you're like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore?
Well, that's good. I with radio, yeah. I mean, that most certainly has most certainly crossed my mind, and I continue to grind through it. Again, it's stations not taking it seriously. The owners of the stations not making as much money, so they're doing different things where they put some god awful infomercial on in between, or you get cut up. It's stuff like that. But again, you have to figure your way through. And I'm a big believer that God has gifted us, each and every one of us, with some talent and ability, and it's our job to go out there and do something with it. And I always talk about it all the time. It's each and every person in America needs to build, create, protect, and teach. And if we can get that down, I said, everybody kind of takes that upon themselves, we'll do well here.
Love it. So Chris, I've just got one last question. Again, 25 years is amazing. This is my very first show this show that I just kicked off. Going back 25 years ago, what do you wish you knew when you launched that very first episode that you know now?
Wow. Well, that's a tough question. I didn't think about that. What I wish I knew. Again, I would know nothing, because you know what? Learning and meeting the media star and seeing actually what happens behind the scenes with all of the nonsense with I can give a million Anchorman references and stuff like that. It's fun. I mean, I remember on Geraldo Rivera's program, and he called me Chris Markowitz. I almost called him Jerry Rivera back to his. I'm like, it's funny, some of the stuff that you see, and some of the people that you think are real bright that aren't so bright, and the ones that it's nothing. Every learning experience should be taken as such, as a surprise, and what you get from it.
Amazing. Well, Chris Markowski, Tonya McKenzie, I love that you guys came on for my first show. It was a lively one. I definitely want to have both of you back in the future. Really appreciate everybody who tuned in on LinkedIn, tuned in on X. This will be available everywhere where you get your podcast. So thanks so much for listening. I've got a powerhouse tech panel coming at you next month. So stay tuned. I'll release details about that when it's ready to go. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.